I'm delighted to be interviewing Harry Buzz Lambert, who was both a student and the principal here. So, Buzz, I'd like to start if you would tell us about your experiences as a student in this school.
Okay, I'll be glad to do that. But first, I want to congratulate the county and the library system for saving this old building. We had the new fire hall built, we had the new middle school built, and this building was sitting here very forlorn, shabby looking, and now it's been renovated and serving a purpose again. And I'm sure the community is really happy that this has taken place. And
we're very happy to be here in this lovely community.
Yeah. Well, I spent 25 years in this old building, 12 as a student and 13 as a school principal, and so it's been a big part of my life. I grew up on the farm, which is right behind the fire hall here, and this is the farm right here in the picture you have here. That's now the mayor of New Windsor's home, the Atlee, and so I didn't have far to travel to school those 12 years. We just walked up across the path here to the school, and it was a grade 1 through 12, and I spent 12 years here as a student, and had a lot of fond memories. The two principals that I had here were Willard Hawkins, who went on to become superintendent of schools in Garrett County, and the last principal, when this was a high school, was Gilbert Martin, and he just recently passed away at about the age of 92. So they were the principals when I was here as a student. Sports were a big thing for us here in the community. I enjoyed playing all the sports that we had: soccer, basketball, and in the spring we had a little bit of baseball. New Windsor, for a little school like this, had a lot of outstanding athletes. In soccer, Daniel Jenkins was an outstanding soccer player, as was Alan Durr. And then when we got into basketball, we had some stellar basketball players. The first one I'd like to mention is Jack Nevius, who graduated in 1956, scored 56 points in one game here at the school.
Wow.
The next one graduated in 58, and that was Jack Bale. He was one of the four. Jack was an outstanding athlete here and went on to Western Maryland College, and later on became a principal here in the county. And then Dan Hartzler, who I understand is going to be interviewed later today, was a outstanding basketball player, and got into the Carroll County Sports Hall of Fame, and has written about 20 books. So they were very, very important. I'm not going to speak about the girls program, because when I came in I saw Peggy Sue Conrad was being interviewed, and she was an outstanding female athlete, and I'm sure she talked about some of the women who played sports here at New Windsor.
Yes, it was impressive that she still had her W letter.
Yeah, she did. Peggy Sue Fritz. Her dad used to be a school bus driver and took the teams around to the schools here in the county.
How far did you travel for sports?
Well, not very far. Every school, every county, every town in the county had their own high school back then. So, I mean, Manchester, Hampstead, Sykesville, Mount Airy, Tawnytown, Union Bridge, they were all high schools then. So you didn't have to travel very far to have games. I guess the furthest we ever traveled was probably Littlestown. Now, we were fortunate to have several good teams under the direction of Melvin Myers, who was a coach, and we got to go to the state finals several times in basketball, and so that was down to College Park.
Very good.
But
so this school went to the state finals in College Park?
A number of years, yes. And,
that's excellent.
And the girls' programs, they weren't as, they didn't have whatever they...
no Title IX then,
Title IX then, so they had very few sports, but the ones that they were involved in, New Windsor did very well and won several state championships in sports like field ball, which they don't even have anymore, but that was one of the things they did.
Excellent. Well, now tell us how you used to practice basketball when you were here in town.
Okay. Well, growing up on the farm, I had a peach basket hanging on the side of the barn. There weren't any baskets that you see outside of school buildings then. and there weren't any programs after school. That when the school day was over and the teachers went home, the buildings were locked, and the custodian came in and took care of the building. This building, back when I was growing up, had a coal-fired furnace, and they delivered the coal in a coal bin, which led into the school building. It had little chutes that you could get in. And when I was about 12 years old, I really loved the sport of basketball, so I would come in on the weekends when the building was closed and crawl in through the coal bin and go up into the gym, and I'd have my own gym for Saturdays and Sundays, and I knew when the custodian had to come in and fire the furnace, then I would be out of there before he came in. So I knew that was probably not the best thing to do, but it helped me develop into the sport that I really enjoyed.
That's excellent.
And
so you finished all 12 grades here?
All 12 grades, graduated in 1954.
And then what?
Well, I was fortunate to get a scholarship to the local college, Western Maryland, and I was able to play 3 sports there. I played soccer, basketball, and baseball for 4 years. And when I graduated, I went into education and started at Elmer Wolf School, which was a high school, as a coach. Moved over to Francis Scott Key High School and coached basketball there for a number of years. Got into administration as an assistant principal. And when this building became a middle school, I came back here as a principal and served here for 13 years as a principal of the middle school.
What year was that when you came?
I think I came here in 1970. I spent 3 years as a principal at Elmer Wolf before I came here, but that was an elementary school, and I had secondary training. So when this became a middle school, the superintendent moved me here, and I spent 13 years here, and I really enjoyed the time I had here at New Windsor, because I grew up in this community and you know everybody, because it's a small community, and we had a good time here as an administrator. Yes,
I'm sure you had a lot of students whose parents you knew and who knew in the community.
And the neat thing about it is the staff that we had, they stayed. And in fact, if you go over to the new middle school now, there are a number of teachers who were in this building back in the 70s that are still over at New Windsor and have getting close to 40 years experience as teachers over there.
Wow.
People like Ed McCurack and Audrey Bowman. There are a number of teachers that were on the staff here. Jeff Kimball, as a matter of fact, was on my staff as a 6th grade teacher.
And he was a principal here too.
He was a principal, right.
Yes.
And then he got over to the new school. 13 years, and then I got moved to other places. I moved to North Carroll for a number of years, and into Westminster for my last 10 years. And
Westminster High or Westminster
No, this was
Middle?
middle school. I was at Westminster West Middle School.
Very good.
And I retired from the education in 1997. That was my last year.
Well, when you were the principal here, how did you go back and forth to school?
Well, most of the times I drove, but when we had the gas lines and the gas shortage, I bought a moped. I live over on the Uniontown Road, which is about 5 miles from here, and I would drive my moped to work up until about Christmas, when the weather got too cold, and I did that for probably 2 or 3 years until I used to park it in the boiler room. And the farm marshal came around for his annual inspection one time and saw my moped in the boiler room, and so that pretty well ended me coming back and forth, because I didn't want it to be sitting outside or that type of thing.
Right. Well, tell us some of your memories of being the principal here. What was it like here, and the students?
Well, let's see. I guess I'm trying to think of some of the individual teachers here that were here that could share. Jeff Kimball was one of the most innovative teachers that we had when I was here, and like I said, he taught 6th grade, and he helped construct here at the school one of the first solar. He always felt the building was cold here, so he constructed a solar heating system outside of his classroom to provide extra heat in his classroom.
Wow.
And that was pretty neat with Jeff. He always had ideas like that. We had a shop teacher who was renowned all over the state because of some of the projects. His name was Wayne Allball, and he initiated programs where boys at the 7th and 8th grade level were building cedar chests and gun cabinets rather than the simple little things like feed scoops and things like that that were being built in other schools. So it was a very close-knit staff. We had a men's basketball team that was a part of a county program. All the schools had they had a league that the faculties played in.
Oh, a faculty league.
Faculty league, and our faculty team for the few years that was in existence, we were able to win that with people like Jeff Kimball and Davy Byers and guys like that who went on to become good basketball players. One teacher that I do want to mention is Gary Geispertz, and he's still at the middle school over here now. And I hired him when I first started in 1970. He travels every day from Hagerstown to New Windsor and teaches 7th grade science. And that's real dedication to travel that kind of distance.
It is indeed. Yes, that's wonderful.
Middle schools are going to be changing. It used to be grades 5 through 8, and then 6 through 8. And I think we're going to see the 7 through 12 systems come back very shortly.
Really?
It's already started in Baltimore City, and I think we're going to see more of that type of thing take place. But I had 13 years in this building as a principal. I really enjoyed it. When the superintendent called and told me he was moving me over to North Carroll Middle School on the other side of the county, and I got my things together on the last day, it was a really emotional thing for me because 25 years was a big part of my life, and I really enjoyed being here. And I'm really happy that this building has become something, again, to be used in the community.
Well, Mrs. Roop, who was a first grade teacher here, was saying that she had 50 students in her class when she had the first grade. I guess over the years that you either were a student or on the faculty and principal here, you saw a lot of changes in class sizes over the years, huh?
Well, when I was here as a student, the classes were very small. In fact, I mentioned to you that my graduating class, I think, had about 15 people in it. Only 5 boys in the class. So what we had back in those days were combinations. In order to have enough people in algebra, you might have 11th and 12th graders in the same class together doing that type of thing to have enough for a class. When we moved into the middle school program, and that's when the class sizes really started to expand again. We'd have classes in the higher level academic groups of 40 students.
Wow. And
in order to have the less able students have a smaller group to work with the teacher, and they would be down in the 20s. So I think that's changed a good bit now since I've been away from the system for 10 years.
It's amazing to me that you could field a state championship basketball team with 5 guys or some tiny cohort like that.
Well, a couple of them were underclassmen, you know, but yeah, and we didn't win the state championship. We went to the finals 3 years.
Well, that's pretty good, though.
Yeah, it was, but we'd always end up being losing in the state championship game, but we got there at least, yes.
Well, considering the size of the school, I think that's pretty amazing.
Right.
When you look at Winters Mill this year, they have a pretty good crowd to pick from. But
well, yeah, but of course the teams we played then were all small also, the other schools, you know, with the classification. But we had a very outstanding coach in Melvin Myers, and he went on to be the athletic director and basketball coach at Bridgewater College after he left here.
Do you still live in New Windsor now?
No, I live over on the Uniontown Road, and my wife and I have a farm over there where we raise beef cattle and hay, and since we're both retired from our jobs that we had, we have a farm that takes most of our time now.
Did you have the farm when you were both working?
Her parents had that farm. Of course, I grew up on a farm here, but we took over the farm as her parents got older, and we've been taking care of that farm now for 20-some years probably.
Well, this is absolutely beautiful farmland, so
yes, it is.
It's be nice to get up and look over the landscape.
I was really pleased to see the number of people that turned out for your activity here today, because, as you know, most of the graduates from New Windsor are 70 years older, or 70 years older, or much older than that now. And I don't think many of the middle school students probably came back, because once they got to middle school, their high school is Francis Scott Key now.
Right, but we can see that this meant so much to the community, and we thank you so much for sharing these wonderful memories with us.
I appreciate you having me in.